Hello, hello. Hello, isn't it cool to meet you?
Oh my gosh. We go way back to like 2005.
I know, it's the craziest thing. And I remember that I was just searching on CD Baby, which used to be that distribution place
Hmm.
for
Yep.
CDs and things. And I just thought, can I find somebody here that actually moves me, that actually writes some songs that I like, that can. And I heard that song Settling, and it like shattered me.
Uh,
It's one of those songs I can listen to anytime, any year, any day,
mm,
and just cry my eyes out. It's like so gorgeous. And
uh,
there's only a few songs that do that in your life, so it's pretty interesting. I think you just tap into just real things.
yeah, I'm grateful for them, and that was my first. I wonder if it was on account of them putting me in on the front page for a little bit, because I had just released that album in October, and I was trying to solicit reviews. I was, mailing it to everybody I could think of, and then CD Baby, um, Derek Sivers. It's basically like an automated thing, but they basically tell you, we like your album, we're gonna serve it to our customers on the front page. Can you send us? Yeah, I think they said send us like 20 CDs or something. But I did notice an uptick of uh, people listening and reviewing it, and so I have CD Baby to thank for us
Yeah.
getting together.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, Derek. Well, that was a great
yeah,
place when he ran it.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's still going, but it's maybe
Yeah,
combined with
it's
makers,
just
or
just for digital now, just
yeah,
as a portal to get to Spotify and all those good places.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
it's a different world. We're not I'm not mailing CDs very often anymore.
That's good in a way. It's good in a
Mhm.
way. Well, it is really cool to meet you, Aaron. So thanks so much for jumping on and doing this thing.
Yeah, likewise.
We
Absolutely.
have both been writing songs our whole lives. We've been playing with that creative process for a long, long time, and you've got a cool book about it too. When
uh,
was the first time that you remember experiencing writing a song? How did that happen?
the first, let's see. Well, my sisters would tell you that I made up little rhymes when I was a kid, and I'd just sing them, but I was just being goofy. So that sticks out as I was probably 6 years old, and I was just making up a rhyme to it was just gibberish to something. But I apparently said a dog ran over my shoulder, which doesn't make any sense. It's just a 6-year-old making up stuff. But
Happens to me
they
all the time with my dogs, actually, because I'm laying down on the floor playing with them.
uh, and so that was whatever. It stuck. They will still tell you that's my first song. But I would say I was probably 15 or 16 when I first started seriously trying to give it a go, and that was just, you know, me in my bedroom.
But what did that feel like, and how did you explore or pull that out of you? Like you talk about so many great starting places in your book. What actually happened naturally, just because you're a human, that you
Mm.
experienced at that young age without having read any books how to do it?
Yeah, I would say I had just so where I'm from, people play ice hockey like 8 months out of the year. It's a town of 2,500 people or so, and I grew up playing hockey, and it's like Texas football, except not as many people, you know. Um, and I just wanted to play hockey, and then so I started from about the time I was 4 or 5 to, and my whole social circle was hockey players, hockey friends in school, hockey friends uh, outside of school, And then in the ninth grade, I I didn't know what it was at the time. I just knew something was wrong. Um, Probably in seventh grade, they started panic attacks, and I didn't. I just thought I was sick. There wasn't really. I didn't have any language for it. I just knew that I would often have to excuse myself to the bathroom and either throw up or just calm down. And and they started getting worse, and part of it had to do with some of the hockey stuff. And I remember asking my parents if I could quit hockey in seventh, I think sixth grade, and then they ended up eventually saying, okay, you know, if you can quit. And that was the ninth grade. My point of the story is my whole social circle went away, like, and my routine of hockey, and I found
Ah.
myself going from school straight home with nothing really to do, and
Mm.
and my grandfather had a guitar that I'd never really seen him use. It just sat in the corner of the living room. And so I asked my dad if we could go over there and if I thought my grandpa could teach me some chords. So you know, he wrote out G, C, D, E minor. I went back. But to your point of where did it come from? I think I was just such at that age kind of in a raw state, and I was, you know,
Mm.
one, your body's going through a bunch of changes. Two,
Mm.
you're so insecure. But I would just be alone in the basement, kind of writing songs, and I I think I was starting to learn structure from my parents were I grew up in a super evangelical Christian home, and my parents were youth leaders, and right around the early mid '90s, um, they would get all this music in the mail for like Bible studies for the youth group, and I would take all the music, and it was just starting to get to like for the longest time Christian music, which was the only music I was allowed to listen to, for a while. It was just like Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, Sandy Patty. That was about it. And then all this music started to flood in from like Tooth and Nail Records,
Mm.
like um, Jars of Clay would be the probably the most popular one that kind of went on to do success uh, commercially. But I just started listening to those songs, and Jars of Clay especially was emotion, like it felt emotional. It was the first, you know, some of the first music where I felt uh, something inside me churning, you know. Um, so I don't know. I think part of it's just intuition. You just start um, learning other people's music first. I don't know if that was your case. I was learning songs I liked, and then
Definitely. That was the reason
transfer.
we wanted to get into it, you know, was
Yeah,
to participate in this cool thing, for
yeah.
sure.
So you kind of learn whether you're consciously figuring it out or not. You're learning how to structure a song more or less from learning other people's songs. And
Yeah, by osmosis, which is a beautiful thing.
mhm,
You know, it's like you learn how to be in the world by just watching how other people are. And if you have good role models, you tend to become a person who's learning good lessons. Or if you see good lessons in a TV show or a movie, I mean, that's why I think sometimes people are so ragged and uh, unregulated, is because they see too many bad role models in
mm,
terms of how to even accomplish life, right? Because we're
mm,
not taught how to control our thoughts and emotions. We're not taught how to save money. We're not taught how to stay well. And without those three things, you can be really miserable, you
mm,
know? But
yeah.
getting back to the original thing, I mean, it was like we wanted to play to participate, to do this thing because it seemed fun. And I can remember just playing and learning songs like you say, but then for some reason at 10 years old, I just started writing songs.
Mm.
And it literally felt different around me in the room. It felt like an energy. It felt like a magic place that I had never been in before, like a veil had opened. And I thought, where am I? This is the coolest thing. And can this ever happen again? I don't know if it'll ever happen again.
Yeah.
How about Mark Hurd? Did you ever listen to him?
No. Is he a Christian artist? You mean from
He
Mark
was, yeah. Yeah,
Mark
he was.
Hurd?
Mark with a K, and he was fantastic. One of my friends had come over and said, "You got to listen to this guy. He sounds like a Christian James Taylor." And I
Huh.
thought, up until that time, it was hard to find a good message with decent musicianship.
Right.
And you could find great musicianship with not so good messages, but this
Sure.
guy, he had it all. He was awesome. And then he even produced me for a while, which was lovely.
Mm. Phil Keggy was the only, and
Super guitar player.
yeah.
Yeah.
uh, my dad recommended when I started, but it was inspiring, but it felt too far of a reach, the gap between where I was and where he was. I think he had an album, The Wind and the Wheat, uh,
As far as guitar playing or
guitar playing,
songwriting or the message.
guitar playing at that point, because
Mm,
I was mainly focused on guitar
mm.
in junior high, and
Yeah, me
writing
too.
was a little bit there, but it was still, I wasn't going to share anything. I was writing for a long time.
Who are some of your favorite guitar players or songwriters?
Yeah, James Taylor was big, and then wh when I got a little older, the rules in the house changed. So my dad, um, he got one of those, like, get 9 CDs for 1 cent if you buy. Remember those deals, like from BMG? Uh,
Right.
uh, so he picked out all the music he liked in college, which was uh, Neil Young, Harvest, Seals and Crofts, James Taylor's greatest hits, the white one. So
Hmm.
we would, I just remember listening to those and feeling like that I've this feels good to me. This sort of, you can hear the guitar, you can it's, I can maybe with Taylor learn a little bit of the finger picking and how it's working. But at that
Mm.
point, you're not like, there's no internet to look up guitar tabs. I'm just like
No.
pressing stop, rewind.
Oh yeah, yeah. One note at a time, one beat at a
Yeah.
time.
So yeah, I would say Neil Young, um, uh, James Taylor. Then later in high school, it was Martin Sexton, who's from
Hmm.
your area, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and he had an album called Black Sheep, and there was a song on the second track is called Glory Bound, and that was kind of the moment I was like, I want to do this forever. If I can
Mm.
figure out how to write a song with just a guitar and figure out how to make it work. So that was, I would say those would be huge influences, and then some other ones, Nick Drake,
Mm.
along the way, um, uh, uh, Denison Whitmer, who's more of
Mm.
a folky guy from Philadelphia. Um, but yeah, I wasn't opposed to other music. It's just I tended to concentrate on acoustic
Yeah,
driven
the
music that I
singer-songwriter person.
yep, yep,
Cool. I
yeah,
noticed. I found it. I was listening to some of your recent albums,
uh-huh,
and I really liked that. Like in a lot of singer-songwriter situations as well, if you're paying attention to the lyrics, which I find I do almost last sometimes,
mm, mm-hmm,
even because I'm just so interested in the groove and the sound of the record and the sound of someone's voice that I'm just swept away in the frequencies of this is delightful, or this is cool, or I'd like to use that bass sound, you know. And
Yeah.
then it goes in a little deeper upon more listens and stuff. But you can learn a lot about a person, the songwriter themselves, like where they're at with their thoughts or their values. And I was really happy to hear that you were quoting the Roosevelt quote, being in the arena and
Yeah.
daring greatly. And I was wondering, did you know that from Roosevelt, or did you get it from Brene Brown like I did?
Oh, no, it was during a time when I was memorizing poetry. I thought I had read something about Alzheimer's, and the best way to steer clear is to keep learning new things. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna start, if I'm gonna memorize something, I might as well be like, so I just Googled like best poems, and that was one of them. So I was writing that song shortly after. I think that was still fresh in my mind.
His speech was an actual poem that he had written and
Well,
then
no, it
delivered.
is a speech. It was a speech, but
Okay.
it's kind of came up in the whole.
And did you put his speech to music, or did you
No, it's just
paraphrase?
the one. I just paraphrased the one line
Yeah.
about daring. It's better to be in the ring than to uh, than in the song. It's just daring greatly is a line from the poem
Yeah.
or the speech. Um,
Because
but
anybody on the outside can poke fun or throw
yeah,
darts or have a comment, especially anonymously these days, but they're not in the arena.
yeah,
Like my dad used to say, consider the source, because they're not
mm,
a musician. They don't even know what they're saying. They know what they like, but it doesn't matter what they
hmm,
think of you or your creation or your work, you know.
yes,
What matters is what you think about it, you know.
mm, that's good.
And that center artist muscle, you know, that's something we have to shape and protect and mold and take care of on a daily
Yeah,
basis.
it's unfortunately, yes. I thought it'd
uh,
get easier, but it turns out it's just maintenance.
yeah, yeah, basic maintenance. Do I feel okay today? Not really. Feel a little, a little soft, you know, like, or that's what I loved about that Paul Simon lyric, right? You know, why am I soft in the middle now? Why am I so
Yeah,
soft in the
yeah,
middle now? The rest of
that's
my
great.
life is so hard.
Yeah,
Yeah, he wrote some
that's
really good things.
another yeah, that was another influence, Paul Simon.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Got to see him here in Nashville on his farewell um,
Did
tour.
you? How cool.
It was fun.
Wow, wow. You know, do you often perform live then without a drummer?
Usually, yeah.
That's a much easier gig.
Yes. Um, I found uh, I found it, yeah, it became when I was learning music, actually my best friend growing up was a drummer, and so he and I would try to play as much as we could guitar and drums together. And when I started going acoustic, we still kind of figured out a way to make it work. There wasn't a lot of low end, so I bought a processor to um I learned this from I went to David Wilcock's show, and he has this great tone on his low end, and I think he uses two inputs. So he has anyway.
He's
Uh,
going stereo into a preamp or something,
yes,
probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I bought this processor that made it basically just octavizes I don't know if that's a word, uh, the the um the low notes. So we would play like at church. Um, we tried it with a bass player, but it was a small town. There weren't a lot of musicians, like
Mm.
hardly any. So it was just kind of him and me making music, and it worked for a bit. Uh, but then I just when I was trying to do this as a career, 2005, it just made more sense to call a coffee shop and see if I
Oh,
could
yeah.
play in.
James Taylor is always saying, be self-contained, you know, like be
Sure.
a singer-songwriter where you could do your thing without the whole band, because for a while it's too expensive to travel with the whole band. And
Yeah.
it's much harder for me just for sound. I mean, I like a whole band and I love
Mm-hmm.
playing with drums and I love being the lead guitar, just
Mm,
skating over the top, because when I was on tour for 12 years with a Beatles tribute band, I
mm,
was one of four. And if I stopped playing, something really dropped out,
yeah.
because we were doing
Wow.
the Beatle years from 1963 to 1970, all those
Okay.
songs. But then I was in a band for 4 years touring around to all these theaters that was a five-piece band, and they were doing the solo Beatles tribute. So I had to be sounding like all these other guitar players. And if I stopped playing, that thing was a machine. It just went. And I was just
Wow.
skating over the top. And it's so easy to just turn up your guitar and play. But to sing over all that
Insane.
sound, it's insane. I don't know how professional people do it. I'm always wishing I could go on a sound check or be on stage and say, what are your monitors like? Are they insanely loud? Because I'm
Right.
always having to wear all these muffled things to just keep it normal because talk about a panic attack. I, I I like short circuit. When things are too loud, I can't see. All my senses kind of go "Arr," like a deer in the headlight or something, and it's just too much. It's
But,
overwhelming.
but yeah. So 4 years in the Soul Beatles, that sounds intense.
It was
Uh,
intense. It was a lot to learn, and both bands, a ton of stuff to keep under your fingers. Don't you wish you could remember how to play everything you've ever learned
yeah, yeah, yeah,
impeccably?
yeah. It was just
Because people don't realize how much work it is to be us, right? The whole creative thing and the mind game of being able to step out of the doldrums and the boredom
mm,
and the self-doubt to create is one thing, but to uh, build a whole repertoire of your own stuff is something. To keep that repertoire under your fingers is a whole other thing. Because some
mm,
people are just performers, or they're
mm-hmm,
just side people,
mm-hmm,
and they just play with whoever they're playing with. They don't have to remember all these things that we
mm-hmm,
remember or produce things note for note or these are the kind of things I wonder about, with other people's art and
mm.
their abilities. I'm sure you just decide before a tour, like maybe which songs you'd like from which albums to perform and work up a set list.
Yeah. And I after moving to Nashville, uh, decided not to tour or try as little as possible to tour and just write. Part of that had to do with panic attacks and all some of the stuff we've mentioned with self-doubt and fighting my own demons. But when I will say I did a summer tour this past summer, and I took my family. We have four young boys, and we uh, got a camper and did the whole works. But I found myself um, I actually went online to just look at like recent James Taylor concerts where it's just him because I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I've forgotten how to do this. What do you say?
Mm-hmm.
How do you start? So I would just go online and watch these concerts from like 2007 where
Wow.
it was just him and then occasionally a piano player. But you're right. I mean, it's yeah, and if you're I'm pretty lyric driven, so it's
Mm-hmm.
remembering all the lyrics. It's
Mm-hmm. And
remembering the all the guitar parts, and especially if it's just you, you have to make the guitar sound interesting. You know, you're an entertainer. You're asking
yeah.
people to come watch you for an hour, and uh, people don't really want to do a whole lot. I don't want to do a whole lot these days. But if I find myself at a concert, then I'm appreciative of uh, the performer, really doing their thing, their
Yeah.
craft. So,
Yeah.
but you're right. It's a lot.
And like you wonder sometimes, why am I doing this?
Yeah, I do all the
what what
time.
what parts of it are your favorite?
The creating,
Yeah, me too.
yeah. So
And
if I could
creating in
just,
the studio, I just
mm, yeah, that's like chef in the kitchen.
mm-hmm.
It's great. If I didn't have to perform the music, if I didn't have to release it, releasing it's fine, but I just I, as soon as the song's done, I'm on to the next one. I mean, it's
I
for
know.
me. I have no interest in, which is why releasing albums is tough because it's usually the stuff you're promoting is way off the.
It's like actors where they have
Yeah,
to go and do talk shows and they're in the middle of a whole new project, but last year or a year and a half ago, they're talking
exactly.
about that movie that's out in the theaters now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh my. Do you write in alternate tunings?
Um, when I was into Nick Drake, I would, but now I'm nothing other than drop D.
Mm.
And now I usually don't even drop D. I just put a capo on, um, you know, on the second fret and play in D. Well, I guess
E at that point,
E
yeah.
E at that point.
Yeah,
Um,
nice.
but
Do you
part of
use
that
that? Go ahead.
a part of that was the performing thing. I didn't want to have people have to watch me retune a guitar.
Absolutely.
So
It's a gigantic can of worms.
yeah,
Um, have you ever heard of that G7 capo?
no.
Supposed to be really big in Nashville. One of
Oh, it
my
probably is.
friends of a guy in Nashville told him about it, and they both pulled it out of their pocket like, this thing is a godsend. And I haven't gotten one yet. They're like $60, but it's like,
G7?
yeah, it's like supposedly, it's got nothing to do with the chord, but it's supposedly like the best capo ever made for any size neck with any radius and will always be in tune wherever you put it. I thought,
Wow.
this I have to check out. But yeah, the alternate tuning thing, I've written in over 70 different alternate tunings and finding ones myself or just visiting lists of Joni Mitchell tunings. And
Mm,
it's a beautiful place to go because it's lush. You know, like
mm-hmm.
Joni used to actually sit outside every once in a while on a mountaintop and tune to the landscape. If
Hmm.
she heard any resonances or any frequencies somewhere, she would just
Wow.
tune her strings to vibrate and resonate with where she was. And I always had this joke of a theory of every apartment I ever lived in, I was probably tuned to the refrigerator or in the key of the washing
Yeah,
machine, or
yeah.
like when I was growing up and writing songs, whatever frequency my mom was vacuuming with, I was
Yeah.
probably writing with
Wow.
that drone in mind. And I have no idea. Like if somebody could do a biopic docu, you could
That's
see that
so
and
so
analyze
cool.
our lives. They could see these trends or these patterns. But I found with the alternate tunings that it's a beautiful thing to let go of the intellectual side of music that I
Mm,
understand and just play with feelings and emotions and let the guitar guide me so I can put my fingers anywhere is what I learned with alternate tunings because all your shapes that don't sound good right away.
mm,
And it's fun to just like, oh, this note wants to go up and this one wants to stay down and this one needs to resolve, but this one wants to be attention. And
mm-hmm.
you have to be very diligent at that point then to take a video of what you just played
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
all the shapes are different.
Yeah.
You got to remember to write down the tuning.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, you can go a step further with a tuner. Remember the tuning, remember each shape, write down all the notes you're actually playing so that you remember this picture was these notes, and then you can eventually name them.
Mm.
It's ridiculous amount of work, and a lot of folks well, like you were saying with bringing maybe more guitars, I used to bring 6 or 7 guitars to each gig, and
Yeah.
then I'd purposely try to write songs in that tuning with another key, with a capo, and a different
Oh, sure.
groove, a different tempo, so that I could stay in one tuning for a while, and five
Yeah.
or six songs later still be entertaining because they didn't all sound the same. It wasn't slack tuning.
Right.
And then came along the line 6 guitars. Did you know about those? Those
Uh-uh.
Variax guitars? They were incredible, and I think you could still get them, but I'm not sure if they're still making them new. James Tyler took over some of those as a Luther himself, and
Huh.
they had a built-in brain, like Sony Guts. It's got Sony Guts in it, and it
Really?
literally would just you program whatever tuning you want, And the thing I disliked about alternate tunings the most was, of course, if you make certain strings louder or soft, not louder, but higher or
Bench.
lower, they eventually break because the more you tune and
Yeah.
detune a string, you get that little fault in the kink in
Uh-huh.
the steel, and that's it. The string's going to
Yeah.
go. But with these, the strings stay at standard tuning with a line 6 guitar. So the
Huh.
only thing that's changing is the sound coming out of your amp. So they made an acoustic one that imitated like 14 different acoustics. So you could have a
Mhm.
jumbo or a parlor size or a 12
Mhm.
string or a banjo, and you just flip a switch and that sound is coming out of this thing. And then they had electric ones where there were 28 different electric guitars that used to come out of those. So you could get a solid body, a semi-acoustic electric, you could
Mhm.
get a big jazz box, you could get a sitar, you could get a banjo, you could get various acoustics. And I used to tour with these guitars for those sound-alike bands because
Uh-huh.
there was like 28 guitars in one
Yeah,
guitar.
that it just makes sense from a practical
Yeah.
standpoint.
It
They're
was
doing
just
that.
bizarre for your brain though, because you'd hear standard tuning here
Oh,
and
wow. Oh,
alternate tuning that like you'd have to play loud enough to not hear this, otherwise you're like, "Ah."
that sounds that sounds
Disorienting.
stressful. Uh, they're doing that a lot now with microphones, where you buy one microphone and you have, I don't know
Yeah,
if you've messed around with these.
mic
Uh,
emulations. No, I haven't.
Um, I tend to, well, I think you can get them for about $1,000, but I'm sticking. I usually just stick with whatever I've got.
Yeah, what
SM.
is one of your favorite vocal mics? Do you have a different one for recording versus live?
I almost always use. I don't know if you can. I turned off my hide self view because I don't like. But can you? It's the SM7 that I'm using here.
Oh,
Um, and
cool.
it's and it's going into a, LA 610 for preamp. Um, I've stuck with that for a long, long time. M- Pre pre that, I would just use like a audio. I'll turn my.
Audio
It's the Audio
Technica.
Technica.
Yeah.
Um, and but and also I still have. When I was a kid, I took microphones from my church.
Don't.
and, and I still have some of them. They're like, oh
Okay.
no. That I think I've said it enough times that they know I still have these mics. But
They haven't come after you.
no, uh,
We love him. He can have them.
yeah,
God
he's
bless
okay.
you, son.
Yeah, but I tend to I like trying to, instead of going out and searching for the sound I want, I do kind of enjoy just using what I have to get close, or maybe come up with something new, or
That's really
just,
smart.
you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
be,
there's innovation and creativity in any way you look at it. It's just a matter of looking at it so that you win and
yeah,
not, oh, I suck and this is why I only do this. You know, it's like,
y-
no, this is your choice.
yeah.
Yeah. But the
So,
SM7 is pretty big for live. It's like,
oh,
where's it?
live I don't use it. I just use a Beta 58, a
Oh,
Shure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one too.
Um,
That works
this is
well.
just, I have a we're in we're in a little studio shed in my backyard is where we're at. If I could,
Give
I
us a
would show you.
tool. Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
how to. um, but
The songwriting pod.
yeah, it's there's a billion of these in Nashville. Some a house with an inconspicuous backyard shed, and people
Oh,
people co-write. That's a lot of what I've done over the last 10 years is co-writing, with.
nice. You want to talk about that experience a little bit versus writing on your own? Has that been
Sure.
a really cool thing for you, or has that been a bit of a, ah?
It was, at first it was really odd because songwriting was very personal, and I'd only written, like, if you couldn't even really call it co-writing, well, not Nashville co-writing, but
Yeah, that's a
bouncing
whole
off,
other thing.
bouncing ideas. Nashville co-writing, it's it's like it's the mindset has to be different, and um, you tend to I tend to be co-writing for maybe 4 or 5 reasons. One, I'm writing with somebody else, and we're just writing a spec song for potential other artists to record.
Mm,
Two, I'm writing with an artist for their record, um, for them to hopefully record. Three, I'm working on my own project, and um, I'm needing help getting through some songs, so I'm have somebody over helping. Four would be we're writing for licensing, uh,
mm,
where somebody is I'll be creating a track per uh, music supervisor's brief, and we are trying to maybe a vocalist is top lining,
mm-hmm,
maybe not. Um, so it's more composing, and then the last one, which is probably the best one, but I do the least, is just for the hell of it, just writing to co-write just to because it's fun.
yeah.
But I think you you kind of have to figure out if you're the pilot or the co-pilot, if
Mm,
you're in the what role you're gonna play in the session, and it's usually established pretty well in the first hour. Um, and it's also well the first if it's somebody complete, which sounds like a long time,
well,
but the
no, no,
first
it doesn't
oh
sound like a long time. It just sounds like I was going to go dirty for a second. It just goes, whoever gets the leg over first. It's just like you're
yeah
just duking it out, like I'm controlling this session. It's just
yeah
ridiculous.
yeah totally.
All right, you've got the
Sometimes,
bigger
yeah,
ego, you
sometimes maybe
go.
it feels that way. Um, yeah, I think, and it's a different process if it's somebody new, which so I spent the first 5 or 6 years just every day, like almost somebody new every day. Like, so if you first have to
Wow.
kind of get to know them,
Mm,
uh, you have to establish trust. That's key. Like, if it, you're not gonna get very far if you don't trust each other enough to
yeah,
open up and say things in a
or like them.
yeah yeah or like so
Hmm.
but if you're writing with somebody who's um been co-writing a lot, they're pretty much just like yeah, let's get to it, let's go.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
but if you're writing with somebody who's new to it, and I was this way too, you're a little bit gun shy, and so you have to uh it just takes longer because you're more precious about the material too, especially if you're the artist and you're writing for, which you should be. Um, but artists, if you're co-writing with an artist, um, it they're the ones who are gonna have to go out and perform it, and
Mm,
you're just in the room for that day, so they're definitely the pilot in those sessions where
sure.
you're trying to help them say what they're trying to say as best you can, you know, I for the song. And but
When
it,
you're writing for yourself, what's your favorite part of songwriting?
I like the discovery process of um, you know, I, I'd mentioned this in the book, but I kind of see it as you're either writing two ways. I find in Nashville, you're either reverse engineering, like almost like a GPS, where
Right.
you know the hook and you're kind of going toward it, or you're just painting. You're like you have a feel. You're in a mood.
Yeah.
The dryer's going, the hum, or something. It's mysterious. And then you just kind of go a brushstroke at a time. And I would say I enjoy that most as a process, just because it's a bit of an adventure and you don't know what's going to happen. You're leaning into the mystery of art and your right side brain more than you are.
Mm. And what about technically the lyrics versus the chords versus the melody? Like for me, my favorite part is this phrase or this sentence is suggesting a certain rhythm because of the strong and weak syllables in the language itself, which all of a sudden starts sparking off melody ideas for me. And it's like,
Mm,
if I already have some words, I can put a melody to anything. And that's kind of
sure.
like my favorite part. It's like that prosody of making something really fit the groove and just have that singability that Sammy Cahn and Stevie Wonder and people used to
Mm,
talk about, you know?
mm-hmm. I, yeah, I, for me, it's more, uh, yeah, I mean, you're playing off of, uh, when I'm writing by myself, it's usually with a guitar,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a piano, but I am basing a lot of the melody off of the chords I'm playing and voicings. Um, and I would say for lyrics, I'm first just filling in vowel sounds, with gibberish. I'm just trying to figure out what
Yeah,
it's supposed to sound like, versus
definitely a
what's,
Paul Simon thing.
yeah.
So
So,
good.
uh, I, that, yeah, I enjoy that process.
What's your least favorite part?
My least favorite part is pressing the send button on my computer whether it's going to my publisher or whether I've been working on a demo that I need to send to the co-writer, and whatever it is, it's the first share. I'm not
Mm,
excited at all to,
yeah, we're
well, I'm just I'm
apprehensive.
just I'm just like, I I care too much, and I know that's an Achilles for me, but uh yeah, it's like, I feel sometimes like I'm a little kid with coloring books, and at the end of the day I'm bringing them to mom and dad, and you hope like a couple end up on the fridge. That's how that's how it feels.
Yeah.
So I would say, well, the other part, just more practically speaking, is it's, uh maybe you find this too, after, and I'm not sure if you write sequentially, or like, I guess it depends on what the song is, but I find after the verse and chorus, the uh the serotonin boost or whatever goes down a bit.
I
So
was good.
it
I
just
was,
means more work ethic.
yeah. Well, then that's an interesting side because then it's like, what do you do to sustain yourself? You know, it's like, do you need water or coffee or lunch break or
Hmm.
because sometimes if I sit with something, it will come. But sometimes it actually makes more sense to get up and stretch and take a walk, and all of a sudden it comes because I'm moving or doing something else.
Hmm.
I mean, this wonderful thing about the brain is like as soon as we tell it, go look for this lyric or go find that next chord, or I really want to finish this song today, the brain's like, yeah, okay, cool, great idea. It's working behind the scenes. It's a wonderful expectation
Yeah.
and a thing to trust, which I love. And I know it's going to come eventually, but um, being okay with not knowing and not having it yet, and having the luxury that I do, that there's never any deadlines really,
Mm. Yeah.
not having a publisher, not
Mm.
expecting a co-write by Thursday, or
Hmm.
having another artist saying, I need that song in the can yesterday. Why don't you have it finished? Like, I just don't have any of that. So it's
Yeah.
no pressure. Um, I kind of like the suspense. I like
Mm.
making the puzzle where I don't know what the box top is. I just have
Mm.
this little piece, but I'm going to turn it into something in the
Mm.
next couple of hours. That's exciting.
That's
And
great.
if a line is missing, knowing that I'll eventually fill it and it'll be so funny afterwards, like it took you that long to figure out that's what you wanted to say there. You know, it's entertaining to me on a few levels. Um, I also had the great uh, experience of working with a high school friend when we were in high school. We were in a creative writing class, and she had enough courage to say, "Would you put one of my poems to music?"
Oh,
And
wow.
after that, we wrote like 60 songs together. And what a gift to get a finished lyric, a
Mm,
potential lyric, a poem, or a bit of lines, words so often. So
yeah.
I did learn how to write sort of top down. I would just
Hmm.
say, okay, here's the first couple sentences, this tempo. Do I want to
Hmm.
sing this, first of all, object or topic wise? I don't know if I want to sing about whatever she's writing about.
Hmm.
Um, Deciding that, so yeah, I'll try this one. Oh, I'm in this tuning. I was so fascinated by the process that I would set up a tape recorder and just say, okay, I'm in this tuning, and this is Shakes's lyric. It's from this date. It's called this, and I'm going to
Hmm.
try to find something.
Hmm.
And I would literally try to record the process because I loved the creative process so much. And sometimes I'd be like, damn, that intro is catchy. Oh, now this verse sounds really catchy. You better come up with a catchy chorus. But I would always top it, like just get catchier and catchier. And uh, I loved it so much. I got so used to it because it was such a gift to get that half done.
That's
So sometimes I feel like my least favorite thing is trying to figure out what I want to talk about because literally I could have students come in and they're like, I don't know what to say or I can't find a melody. I'm like, open up that magazine, give me a
mm,
sentence, give me your
mhm,
favorite chord, and I can sing anything and
mm.
make it sound really cool. Um, so I
Do,
have more practice, I think, doing it that way, having a lyric first, but I don't do that for myself. They come out all together, they come out in all different ways, and I guess
does
I
she,
just still have a little apprehension about the words on my own sometimes. Like I would be a great Elton John for somebody as a Bernie Taupin, and that's what we used to say we were. She was Bernie and I was Elton.
I was gonna ask you if you still write with this person you grew up writing with. Does she still send you poems, or is she still?
Once in a while, very, very rarely, but when she stopped back in the late 90s, I was like devastated. I'm like, oh, come on,
Mm,
this is such a great thing alongside of all the other ones I write myself, you know?
mm,
But I still have a ton of old songs that I have not recorded professionally yet or released. And I keep writing more is the problem, you know? So then
so
it's like, these will be the next 12 or 10 I release. These will be the next. And then I change my mind and, you know.
so you're like, what happens to are they in a Dropbox folder somewhere, or just on your laptop, or?
They're on like cassettes from when I was 15 or 19 or
Mm,
37, and they're on mini discs and they're
yeah.
on old reel to reels, and I have to dig out what I digitally transferred over and listen to it again and go back to my sheets and relearn them and say, okay, it's time to record this one. Like a couple of years ago, I recorded a song of mine called For Another Star, and that was released in 2020, but I wrote it in 1978, you
Mm,
know? And it
hmm.
was just lovely to go back and hear that song. It's
Yeah.
like, you still like that? You were only 18. What did you know? It's like, I know, but I liked it. It came out good. Let's
Yeah.
record it for real.
It's a great thing about music. It's this little life that you create, and it just lives on its own, whether it's heard by anybody or not. But it's like it can be taken out at any time.
Exactly. Well, we used to call them bouncing baby songs, like, oh, look, we have another new life in the world.
Mm,
And
hmm.
if you put enough love and attention and detail into it, it exists and has its own heartbeat and lives on its own, like you're saying.
Mm,
And to me, the fact that we get to create these, that we have this desire to do it, is the fascinating part. That's the part that gives us life and excitement and reason to get up in the morning and something fun to look forward to throughout the day. You know, if I attach the baggage of this should make me money, or why can't this be my career, or
hmm.
uh, you know, why do I have to do this for money instead of that?
Hmm.
It's like I really like looking at it as I've had the pleasure of doing it without any pressure, you
Mm,
know, and it's been for me. I write the kind of music I want to hear. I
hmm.
write the kind of cool guitar parts I want to hear, you know? So the arrangements are mine. Sometimes I'm playing all the instruments and being the whole band. I'm mixing it. I like my choices. I like my productions. I like my engineering and my mixing and my mastering. And I like that I've been learning about all those different things. And I just find it fun. It's like doing a painting. Why do I have to have 90 people involved with this one painting? I feel a
Yeah.
little like Joni Mitchell that way. It's like, I
Uh,
know what I'm doing. I'm fine. I'm okay over here. Would you like to buy it?
uh,
I'd love for you to buy it. But now look at this music industry. What have they done to it? There's
it's a
nothing to
song
sell
by
now.
committee. Yeah. I feel like it was Willie Nelson who said Picasso didn't co-paint.
Yes, yes, yes.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely an industry, um, and and it is mostly full of people who have said um, kind of what you were saying you didn't have to do or didn't want to do is to make it uh, put the pressure on yourself to make money from it. Most
Mm.
people here have put themselves and myself included in that situation where it's like it's a choice I consciously made to um to actually have a little bit of a grieving process for music because I can't listen to it the same way I don't love it the same way I used to. Um and
Well, that's
Or
a thought.
yeah.
You could change that thought.
Yeah, yeah, or I love it differently, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well, we
and
are jaded. I'm speaking for myself, but yeah.
no, I always picture songwriters as like the the English teacher faculty lunch, just a bunch of English teachers smoking and they're all jaded and they went into the profession wanting to change the world and they're in the thick of it and it sucks, but it doesn't all suck.
Well, that has been my wrestle. It's
Mm,
like, I'm an artist. I'm not an educator. They wanted me to teach there because I had a different perspective.
mhm,
I feel like I'm an artist in residence and I get a stipend because that's my salary and I get
mhm,
my living quarters, which is the house I was able to buy because of it.
mhm.
And really I just have to keep experimenting and learning and growing and creating and then share what I discover.
Mhm.
Share the process, share what I'm learning, share all the new instruments I'm learning, share the new recording techniques. And when I look at it that way, I'm very happy, you
Mm,
know, and
mhm.
it's very exciting. Um, but I don't like when it's grades and paperwork and
Sure.
nonsense, like there's red tape and everything.
Yeah.
Even if I was just performing constantly, there would be all the sound checks and all the lousy loud drummers and so there's always something. There's no specific thing that is 100% totally great all the time, which is unfortunate. And so for me, it's like I have to constantly phrase it so that I don't make it worse, you
Sure.
know. And some days I'm better at it than others because, it's our attitude and our words and our thoughts and our actions and all those things get tied together. And, uh,
Absolutely.
we tell ourselves a story and then we believe
Mhm.
it and then we can't overcome it, right?
Mm.
So I don't know. Have you heard of Eric Maisel?
No.
He did one of these podcasts with me, and he's written over 50 books for creators, for
Mm,
creative people. And he's a psychotherapist and a psychiatrist, and he's against the whole system of how people are treated and just not understood or giving them the tools to think better,
mm.
right? Rather than just medicate everybody and
Sure.
put a label on them and say, well, you're screwed. You belong in a box because you have this problem.
Sure.
So yeah, he's a very cool guy. He's got a
That
lot of cool books.
I'll check them out. That's definitely a fascinating subject for me, for lots of people, but
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Just
the
being a human being. We need people with skills to teach us how to do the things we need to do. And most people aren't even thinking on this level. They're basically just surviving each day and kind
mm,
of drudgery slugging through the day. This is why I love the artists we love so much, because when you see them as powerful, amazing human beings, we want to be that. We want to be that hero. And how do you be the hero or the heroine in your own life? How do you step up and become more so that you are and see yourself as a superhero, right?
Hmm.
That takes practice. And
Yeah.
and yet it's what makes the day better or makes me feel like, everything is so bad that nothing's
Right.
working. It's just a story, right? So I'm going to tell myself a better story. That's what I'm practicing.
No, um that's a great perspective, and even just seeing yourself from a distance as a character in a story is helpful. It helps you not to um you know there are definitely victims in the world, but it's easy to have a victim mindset in different situations. But looking at
Mm,
yourself, as you're saying, from um it helps you make choices and be more of a
a creator rather than a
yeah,
victim. Yeah.
yeah.
Create your life the way you create your world, or create your music the way you create your world. Well, no, you want to do that reversed. You create better music, right? So create a world that you're.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, the first I heard of that was reading a book when I was in high school about positive thinking. And then there were all the very first preachers I used to listen to because they were talking about how words matter and
Mhm,
words are containers and they make us feel a certain way. And you're creating your life, the I am statement and the
mhm.
you really are God within, right? So if we're creators like that, that's what makes the creative process so interesting to me, is that we human beings use that creative process for everything. So the best musicians, the best painters, the best physicians, we're all using our extra senses to say, let's call on infinite intelligence to make things even better and to do greater work
Mm,
and be something more.
mhm.
So
That's
that's
good.
exciting. That's really stepping it up. That's what makes me get excited about living. The other
Yeah.
stuff is like pure drudgery. So then it comes down to me with, okay, well, what are your basic needs? Like when I woke up this morning, I did not feel that great, but the weather is weird. And sometimes my head starts getting a bit of a migraine. I think, I don't feel well. Why don't I feel well? It's like, oh, take your little Highlands migraine thing, and
Mhm,
let's tune ourselves the way we tune a guitar.
mhm,
And let's
mhm,
step up and meet this guy that you've admired and liked all these years. And
mm.
let's have some fun. There's a decision. But
Yeah.
really, it would have been easy to just curl back in bed and say, can we cancel?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, showing up is half the battle
Exactly.
for it's and
And most people don't feel like it when it comes around. Like I'm excited to put something on the calendar, and by the time it comes, I'm like, oh, I got to do that today. I wanted to
yeah,
do it 2 months ago.
yeah, exactly. You're playing chicken with the other person to see who cancels first. Um, the Kevin
Well, it
Kelly,
comes down to whose side are we on, right?
yeah. Could you expand?
Well, I can get myself coming and going, right? I didn't grow up right, or I wasn't taught right, or I didn't have the best role models or teachers or parents or encouragement over the wrong things, or like you could hold on to any story. So it's like, why not phrase that story so that you win? I mean, that's
Mm,
the coolest reason to have a publicist, right?
mm,
If we all had a really excellent publicist, no matter what we did, no matter what we experienced, no matter what we had, they'd spin it so that we win and that we look good. And
mm,
that's what we have to do in our own lives. So I get these tips like from Mel Robbins and Tony Robbins and Brooke Castillo and uh, this woman Tanya and there's so many people, Eric Mazel, and they're just folks that have figured out, even Oprah. I mean, there are people that
mhm,
just they Maya Angelou taught her. There's a
mhm,
lot of things to know. Paul McCartney is
mhm.
this the greatest with trying to be a positive
Yeah.
force in the world. Use your power for the good. Don't forget that you are a spiritual being. Don't forget
Mm,
that you have access to power. Don't forget to use it. The most frustrating thing is that we're magicians and we forget to use our own magic.
mm. That's so good. I
Love
and
it.
just the the publicist thing is a is a great analogy.
Mm.
I remember I we had a publicist for a it was I can't even remember what we were doing, but I was nervous because I'm usually nervous about anything with marketing or publicity. But and my biggest thing with him at the time was I doing interviews and stuff, and I said, well, I'm not like I've always had a hard time talking. Words don't like I feel like it's when you first start typing on a computer, you have to think about the letter, and then you don't have to think about the letter anymore. You think about the word, and retrieving language on the spot for me has been like that. So I don't have my language is never fluid. But he said something. He framed it. He did a reframe, and he said people don't see you as stupid or that you can't talk. They see you as a person who chooses their words carefully, which I thought, I mean, yeah, I do try to do that, but it's
Well,
such a great
that
reframe.
that comes down to an article you should read on my friend's website. Kate Chadbourne teaches at Harvard, and she says, "Who are you really?"
Hmm,
And we're both, right? We're, I'm an introvert, and it seems like I'm this extrovert because I like to be on stage and I teach and I do this podcast, and it's like,
true.
ah, you know. But who are you really?
Hmm,
You are as much that positive person, that reframe, as
mhm,
you are the other one. So which one are you going to keep in the forefront of your mind? Which one are you going to act from? Um, there are examples of like writing down your history, writing down your story, and every disappointing thing, and turning all those around
hmm,
to see that in a better light, just to
mhm,
empower ourselves because I feel like going through life is like a rocket. You remember when we used to watch the space program and we'd watch the
hmm,
rockets launch? You'd see this launch, you'd see this giant thing get off the ground and they'd be so excited. Liftoff, we have a liftoff. And finally, when it gets out into orbit, different parts start to break off. And I think different
mhm,
parts of us break off as we get older, and we need more thrust. We
true.
need that extra little burst, and it's going to be a different thing. It's not what we got to lift off the ground. It wasn't from what works for me when I was 10 doesn't work for me when I was 20, or,
Mhm,
all that kind of stuff, that kind of a thought. And Dana Wilde is another one to listen to. She's
hmm,
fantastic because she's talking about making money the fun way, you know? And it's all mindset.
yeah.
Everything is mindset. And whether we win or lose is mindset. Whether we get the song written or whether we're successful or whether we're just kind of making it and just getting by. I don't want to talk like that. I don't want to
Hmm.
be that grumbly person anymore. I could so easily like turn into my mother and be professionally disappointed about everything. And the people I'm around are like, please don't, because we will leave you.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's a uh, great litmus test of like the people
It's a choice.
around you. Yeah.
I'd rather just be a very happy-go-lucky beetle, and just try to turn on the fun and hang with great people like you and, just enjoy being us. That's
Yeah.
that's the miracle of this time. I don't
So,
want every minute of every day to feel like a bummer. God, it's all in my own head. The whole freaking thing is in my own head. Ah.
great. I gotta write down some of the books you listed. One that I have to do. I've been doing this for about 4 years now. Is a like a positivity. It's not a mantra because it's a whole thing, but it's basically about um, the stuff you're talking about. It's from a book called The Carpenter by John Gordon. He's kind of a
Right.
he's written a bunch of self-help um, coaching books, but it just helps me to start the day
Mm.
like with the perspective that I do have a choice,
Mm-hmm. That's
and
the part we all forget.
yeah,
And that's the practice. Like everything else, we have to really literally tune ourselves like we tune our guitar a million times a day. I got that analogy from Jim Carrey. Have you heard his graduation
Mm.
speech?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's a
that's
fantastic
great.
speech. Yeah.
It's great. And
So yeah,
I think the stereotype in our um, profession is more the brooding artists, which that's there for a reason, I suppose. But it's not. It's not. Doesn't have to be the case.
yeah,
You don't
we've
have
written some happy songs too.
to. Yeah.
They weren't all cathartic songs,
Well.
but I think mostly it's just remembering to use the magic and practicing and realizing that it's not supposed to be a set it and forget it. It's like, I felt great yesterday. Why can't I feel great today? First, you got to take care of all your emotional, physical, and spiritual needs, right? Because if those aren't happening, and the sleep and the water are the most
Hmm.
big
Yeah.
ones, the fuel, the food, the real food, because it takes us decades to know what food actually works for us and doesn't.
Mm.
And the industry, no matter which industry it is, sometimes would rather have cattle to just tell them where to go and do, and they rather you stay depressed and helpless. They don't want you to be real strong necessarily, but I would rather be a person that makes my own choices and does have that strength and questions everything, because not everybody is in your body. Not everybody knows
Yeah.
really what's best for you more than you. And
Right.
so that's a responsibility too. It's much easier to have a chef and have a publicist and have like everybody take care of all those things for me, so all I can do is create. That's what I want to do. Can someone cook for me, please? And it's like, there's just a lot of responsibility to step up with and to be an adult. But I
Yeah.
want to be one of those. I want to be Paul. I want to be the image I have of Paul in my head of dancing with people, being respectful mutually, appreciating each other's work and having fun,
Mm.
And when I can't be that, I'd rather be asleep so I don't hurt anybody or hurt myself.
Not a bad second option. Sit.
Sorry, don't know where he is today.
Sleeping. Uh,
So
that's
great.
great.
Uh,
I've enjoyed this. I don't know
Me too.
how long you want me for. I'm good for whatever. So
Yeah, we're good. What
just let me
what
know.
what haven't we said? Can you plug your albums in your book for us so
Oh
I can
gosh.
edit out the little questions we have here and then.
Sure. I guess the best place to go to learn more is just my website, aaronesp.com.
Mm.
And I um I do like a weekly newsletter of
Oh, sweet.
songwriting thoughts, and um I'm right now going through my entire catalog of release songs and just going kind of doing a behind the music series.
Oh,
Um
cool.
so just
Like
uh
playing in the background and talking over them?
it's not a pod, it's not audio, it's actually just a email newsletter. So it's
Right.
mostly written word with images, but sometimes there's links to listen to like the work tape of a song, how it began,
Oh, I
um,
love those. Yeah.
and just taking like you said, process is so interesting that I think I used to not want to share process because I thought, you know, that I don't know why had more of a scarcity mindset probably, and but I enjoy process so much that to um, share it with others, and if a kid in high school can learn a thing or two, or I
Mm.
somebody in some way, then it's worth
Awesome.
it. So yeah, but anyway, just the website is probably step one. And I'm on the socials too. But I
Cool.
do try and focus my attention more on email and newsletter, just more one-on-one stuff.
Oh, nice. Lucky me. I got to be face to face. Well, what's fascinating about that too is that every student I've ever met since I started teaching at Berkeley in 1984 that writes songs pretty much writes songs the same way I wrote songs when I was 10.
Mm,
So to me, that tells me without books, without a course, without the rules, without
Hmm.
human beings just have this natural ability to explore and create and to love and to be super cool, happy, love things like Mike Dooley says, right?
Mm.
He's another one you should check out.
Mm.
He's really good. To be your super cool, happy, love thing self, you've got to do your work. And my theory is artists are miserable because they're not doing their real work, right? When we're doing our work, we're ecstatic, we're happy, we're on cloud nine.
Mhm.
You know, I found the right verb, you know, just like there
Yeah.
are little wins that are just so delicious, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I could hear a certain arpeggio happening
Mhm.
in a chord with the right guitar sound, with the right guitar, and I blend it into my recording so well. And I'm crying. I'm so
Mm.
happy. I'm crying, you know.
Yeah.
So that's to me what spins my chakras. So
Yeah.
knowing what spins your chakras is the best. And
Mm.
to be able to find like-minded people that maybe accept the language we have to describe it or the way we teach it or love to hang with us because they love our decision to be more of a positive person. Those things just make it work, you
Mm.
know?
Mhm.
It's the choice of to be a better person and to carry on. It's not about whether they there's always students that don't like me, you know, or students who do. It's a
Mhm.
teaching style versus a learning style. It's got nothing to do with anything. It's like just finding the right fit, all of
Mm.
us,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
even if it was, you know, trying to be published or to get a record deal or whatever, it's like you're trying to find a match and somebody who has mutual respect for your work that says, you have what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I wrote this down in a song a long time ago, and I had heard it from another preacher. He said, your gift makes room for you.
Mm.
There's a place for all of us. And your perspective, Aaron Espy, your perspective is like no other. And that's what makes it special. And that's what makes mine special. And that's what makes everybody special. So why should we shy away from being more of ourselves? In
Mm.
fact, showing up and being taller and giving more of ourselves helps everybody decide sooner
Yeah.
whether we're a good match so they can go on and no, 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 yes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's
Yeah.
that's so great.
So
Uh,
fun.
to your point on the when we're creating, we're in our, you know,
Bliss.
in our bliss. It's like the reason so many of us get depressed when a project ends is probably because of that. You know, we're just
Mm,
it's hard. It's great to see a project come to fruition, but it's also means you got to find the next one fast, or at
yeah,
least for me. Are you
definitely.
working on anything currently?
Always. Because I feel like if I'm not involved with something, my brain will eat itself.
Yeah.
It's like I got to give it a task, you know. Um, uh, I've been putting out an album almost every year the last couple of years, sometimes EPs in the same year and some singles too. I kind of go back and forth like, do I want to release a single a month? I've been writing a song or two a month. I
Hmm.
go in and out of doing that and not doing it, you know, because sometimes I'm in a big mixing crunch or something, or working
Sure.
on albums for other people,
Hmm.
recording and mixing for them. But yeah, there's always something I'm writing or wanting to come out from the past to let that song finally see the light of day. But
Right.
I know what you mean about releasing something. I mean, it's like giving birth, you're exhausted. There's been thousands of hours and
Hmm.
choices made. That's what most artists find exhausting is every single little thing is another choice to make.
Mm.
And some of that's exciting and some of it is just you need a break, you know?
Yeah. It's like going to the grocery store for a month. Just ones and zeros, 1 0 1 0, and yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, the which chord, which word, which verb, which
Yeah.
title, all that stuff. So many choices.
I've never uh I grew up and most of my jobs were in construction growing up, so it was like a body tired thing.
Sure.
Never really experienced the like exhaust a brain, fatigue, like
like
writing
this one.
everything. Yeah. uh,
And the
and
fear of the rejection. I mean, that's
yeah.
just always going to be a natural thing, you know.
Mm.
Oh, hello.
Is that a
I'm not the
puppy?
only one here. I've got two
Yes.
puppies with
Oh
me.
yeah.
I
Good
realize in the
puppy.
video to be doing this all the time looks weird, but
I didn't notice. So
yeah, because dogs
maybe,
disappear.
yeah. Maybe it's a stress ball or a stress. What's that? No. I keep a yo-yo. I keep a yo-yo in my desk and a
Oh,
baseball
cool.
and
Nice.
um,
Well, this has been really awesome and super cool to meet you after all these years.
uh, likewise. I'm so glad you reached out and you're doing a podcast. It's amazing. Um, yeah. When
I'm glad you
Heidi
said,
mentioned your name, I was like, wait, Laura? Um, like that's from like 2005. Yeah, we've chimed in a few times since then, but
yeah, just email.
yeah, but thankful for you and the work you do and the spirit you have. So it was a pleasure just to hang out with you for an hour.
Thanks
Okay.
so much for doing this, though, and thanks to Heidi for setting it all up.
Oh yeah, thank you. All right, we'll talk soon.
Take care. Ciao.